This week on Christian World News, hope and prayer. Syria's Christians make an appeal to President Trump. Don't leave us at the mercy of our enemies. Plus, the least of these, the moving story of a missionary and his children martyred for their faith. It all comes to a big screen. And super faith. This NFL player had success and fame, but it took an injury to show him new life. Hello everyone, welcome to this week's edition of Christian World News. I'm George Thomas. My colleague Wendy Griffith is on assignment. Syria's Christians fear the pullout of U.S. troops could lead to a disaster. Just a few years ago, ISIS carried out a horrific genocide. Now, believers fear another potential apocalypse, this time from Turkey. There are about 100,000 Christians in northeast Syria. They've already seen Turkish troops wage a brutal campaign against Christians and Kurds in nearby territories. President of Turkey, Erdogan, has threatened a similar campaign in northeast Syria. One pastor's wife wants President Trump to know that Christians are counting on him for protection.
We love the American president a lot. I have said that he is a believer and that he prays. And so I was surprised. Why did President Trump do this? That he immediately wants to withdraw the forces from here. Is it possible that he was not considering the church, or that he doesn't know that there are believers here?
CBN Middle East Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell met with those believers. He explains why they are so afraid.
We had the privilege to be there at that church, and the pastor's wife told us about that. And many people there feel that since President Trump is a Christian, reads the Bible and prays, that maybe he just didn't know that there were many Christians there in that region. They're terrified of two things. First of all, if Turkey comes in and invades. Also, if it monitors this 20-mile security zone that's been talked about, because most of the Christians in northeast Syria, they live and reside along this 20-mile security zone. So they're very concerned about the potential of a genocide for two reasons. Last year in Afrin, which is in northwest Syria, the Turkish army, along with the Free Syrian Army, came in and they burned churches, they burned Bibles, and they hunted Christians door to door, especially Muslim background believers, Muslim who had become Christians and expressed their faith in Jesus Christ. Also, in 1915, there was something called the Armenian Genocide, and they have a collective memory of that because many of the parents and grandparents of the people who live in northeast Syria actually fled that genocide. And so actually there's probably three main stories coming out of northeast Syria right now. This geopolitical tug of war, what's going to happen? Will Turkey come in? Will northeast Syria align themselves with the Assad regime, which they really don't want to do? Or will the U.S. stay and perhaps even increase its presence? That's one thing. Also, this new form of government that is forming in northeast Syria is one of the most unique stories in the Middle East today. We talked to a freelance journalist who's been covering this for several years, and he says he doesn't know of anything like it in the world, and especially in the Middle East. And finally, it's this idea of genocide. Really, this is a time to be praying for these Christians who fear a genocide, and they're really crying out, they're praying that President Trump would reconsider and that he would protect the Christians not only in Syria, in northeast Syria, but in Iraq as well. They fear that they could be exterminated in this region. They are telling us that they're the salt and light in the Middle East, and that's exactly what Jesus said they would be.
Thank you, Chris. White House spokesperson Sara Sanders says Christians in the region shouldn't fear a U.S. pullout. This week, she spoke with CBN News about that issue, as well as her personal faith and God's call on President Trump. CBN's Jennifer Wishon has more from the White House.
As the U.S. prepares to withdraw from Syria, Sanders wants Christians and Kurds in the region to know they'll still have support.
The idea that the president is just stepping away and ignoring any potential problem doesn't understand the fundamental decision that he's made. He wants to bring our troops home out of Syria, but we're not leaving the region.
You are not shy about the fact that you're a woman of faith.
People say you have to separate that. If it's real faith, you can't separate it because it's who you are. It's a part of who you are.
As the Bible says, the Bible commands us to pray for our enemies. Is it hard to pray for your enemies? That list can be long, Sarah.
Actually, it can be, I think, a helpful tool in keeping you calm. There's a reason that God calls us to pray for our enemies, and I think it's to give us better perspective and better understanding of who they are.
Well, I want to talk about the toll that this job has taken on you. You're going to miss moments with your kids, with your family. Do you struggle with mommy guilt?
Oh, every single day. To explain to a 6, 5, and 3-year-old what you do and why it's important is nearly impossible. My oldest is a girl. I think it's very important for her to see, even at this age, that as a woman she can do anything that she sets out to do.
I mean, does it kind of, in a way, blow your mind that, you know, someone like Donald Trump, who is sitting in the Oval Office, I mean, I know you can list the accomplishments, but at the same time, just from a spiritual perspective, there are a lot of Christians that believe for such a time as this.
I think God calls all of us to fill different roles at different times, and I think that he wanted Donald Trump to become president.
He's an interesting pick and an imperfect messenger who requires a press secretary who's quick on her feet. Jennifer Wishon, CBN News, the White House.
Thank you, Jennifer. President Trump is speaking out in favor of Bible literacy classes being taught in public schools. The president declaring in a tweet, giving students the option of studying the Bible is great. The president's support comes as lawmakers have introduced Bible literacy bills in Florida, Indiana, Missouri, North Dakota, Virginia, and West Virginia. Some of those have already been voted down. Up next, burned alive. 20 years ago, this missionary and his sons died for the gospel. Today, their story is being told on the big screen.
CBN presents The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
We're going to talk about some of the incredible promises God has made to His children.
In Pat Robertson's newest teaching, you'll discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation, and see amazing stories of God's promises in action.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Break free from stress and despair.
The Lord doesn't want you to live in fear, but to know the rewards given to those who love God.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit cbn.com. The I Wills of God, your path to overcoming fear and anxiety.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphan's Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Cuba has a new Catholic church. The parish of the Sacred Heart of Jesus is one of 3 Catholic churches authorized by Cuba as part of a warming between the Vatican and the island's communist government. The building was inaugurated in a ceremony Saturday. Members of St. Lawrence Church in Tampa, Florida, donated $95,000 to the new building, which holds some 200 worshipers and was built on land granted by the state.
It's us living out our baptismal call to go out into the whole world, to make disciples and to proclaim the gospel of Jesus Christ. That's what this project's for, following what Christ has told us to do. Wonderful that it's in Cuba and that we're from Tampa, but we're just doing what we were called to do with our baptism.
The late Cuban dictator Fidel Castro began easing restrictions on religion in the 1990s. Pope John Paul II, Benedicta, and Francis have all visited the island since then. An American missionary doctor who risked his life to serve patients at the height of the 2014 Ebola crisis has been honored for his service. Dr. Sacra contracted the deadly virus while caring for pregnant women at a Christian hospital in Liberia. Sacra received the Lahaina Prize for Outstanding Christian Medical Missionary Service in New York. The prize includes a $500,000 award to help train other medical experts in the West African nation. Sacra shared what he's learned from other missionaries about the intangible rewards of their service.
As I got to know older missionary doctors and people who had devoted their lives to this kind of service, they don't regret it. They don't say, I've given up so much and what do I have? They say, look at these, look at the treasured relationships I have. Look at the, you know, the little thing I've been able to do and how God has used it and multiplied it. And there's nothing as rewarding as that.
The Lahaina Prize, created by American Jewish philanthropists Mark and Erica Gerson, aimed to improve healthcare across the African continent. Now that Pakistan's Supreme Court has upheld Asia Bibi's acquittal, how should Christians pray for her? Bibi is the Christian mother falsely accused of blasphemy. She is reportedly on her way to Canada to live with her family. Wilson Chowdhury of the British Pakistani Christians Association told our Gary Lane it will take some time for Bibi to adjust to life outside of prison.
Well, Asia has obviously been incarcerated now in isolation for over 9 years, close to 10. Now, this woman has, been, bereft of her family. She's been away from any friends. Her conversations would have been minimal with the cleaner that may have passed by for 5 minutes. So you can imagine her mental state is not going to be the same as it was previous to her incarceration. And we need to pray that she is given time to heal and that the Lord restores her completely.
Chowdhury is urging people to also pray for 18 other Christians still being held on blasphemy charges in Pakistani prisons. It has been 20 years since Australian missionary Graham Staines and his 2 sons died at the hands of Hindu fundamentalists in India. His humble story has inspired a feature film that hits theaters across America. Ephraim Graham sat down with the star Stephen Baldwin to bring us this look at the least of these.
Christian community has become a soft target for radical groups in the last 1 month.
This incident has left many in the Christian minority community shattered and broken.
Ripped from real-life headlines, the least of these is inspired by the life of Graham Staines.
What you're reading?
It's a great book about a missionary.
Can you read us some?
I think you're going to find it quite boring.
Stephen Baldwin plays the missionary, whose story touched the actor long before he signed on to the project.
Can you read some of our books?
And it sticks with you, because when you hear, when you try not to think about the horrible details of an event like this, Australian missionary, working in India, doing medical services to the least of these, the lepers, and he's horrifically murdered with his 10- and 7-year-old son. Now, when I say that, usually around this big, beautiful planet, most folks are going to go, wow, because it doesn't matter who you are, what color you are, where you're from, what your faith is. If you're a dad or you're a mom or you're a brother or a sister or a niece's nephew, whatever. That's just terrible. This is one of those things that in our hearts connects us all, which kind of feel like we're losing these days. So this film is just very special in that way. It just tells a compelling, simple story about one guy's humble walk.
A young beggar boy was found to have leprosy. People were shouting, pushing each other, wondering what to do with the boy. And then from the crowd walked a man.
Okay. Come on. It's okay.
Anish Daniel directs the movie, his first feature film. It's a passion project that began almost immediately after the brutal murders of Graham and his sons. killed while serving India's poorest.
And this was 1999 when the incident happened. Maybe after a year, I wanted to do this. And I went and met Gladys Steens. And she said, come back next year. And I went next year. And then she said, we'll think about it. Let's meet next year. And I went next year. And then 2004, I happened to meet a friend, Andrew Matthews, and we both started writing the script.
How did you hear about the story from the very beginning? Where were you? What happened?
When the incident happened, I was in the CBN office. Will you believe that? And I was with a managing producer called Donna Testa, and I remember George coming and mentioning this news.
So you were in Virginia Beach at CBN?
Yes.
Did the church give you money to become a Christian? No. Instead, I give money to church every month. My offering.
A journalist searching for the truth is at the heart of this story that rests on two themes: Graham's service to the least of these and his wife Gladys's strength to forgive his killers.
Quick, quick, quick! Let's go get it!
Whoa, whoa, careful.
Sherry Rigby plays Graham's wife.
How do you forgive the unforgivable?
You know, that's a question I think we all have to tackle. And that was something, I think, with this movie that we think about it, I think, especially as believers, that, well, of course we forgive. We've been forgiven, so of course we forgive. But to be in the moment, to really have to forgive someone, and for something like this, not only one, but three, the only way that somebody can do that is to know so matter-of-factly who their Savior is.
Ephraim Graham, CBN News, New York.
Coming up, he has his own special Super Bowl story, but it took an injury to show this NFL star the author of his story.
Parents, the Superbook Bible app is a great way to get your child reading the Bible, because in today's busy world, we can use some help. The free Superbook Bible app has fun stuff your kids will love. They'll have a blast learning the Bible, playing great games, watching cool videos, discovering heroes in the Bible. They'll have fun while they learn God's Word. The Superbook Kids Bible app, available now.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Discover the I wills of God. I will rescue him, protect him, answer him, be with him in trouble, deliver him, honor him, satisfy him with long life, show him my salvation.
What I felt was loved and treasured.
God spared my life twice in 3 days.
The good Lord had given me a second chance.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or visit CBN.com. The I wills of God, the latest teaching from Pat Robertson.
Matthew Slater has his own place in NFL history. When the Super Bowl between New England and Atlanta went into overtime 2 years ago, Slater, as captain of the Patriots, called the coin toss. He guessed right, and the New England folks went on to win the championship. Slater told CBN sports reporter Sean Brown how football injuries led to his decision to follow Jesus Christ.
New England Patriots' Matthew Slater is one of the NFL's most respected players. He's a two-time Super Bowl champion and a six-time Pro Bowler. While those are impressive accomplishments, Matt says he remembers a time in college when he considered leaving the sport he loved.
I was prepared to transition away from the game of football because, you know, I didn't know what my opportunity would be at the next level. But I think through that, you know, God kind of showed me, hey, you know, you're not Matthew Slater, the football player. You need to understand that your mind and your purpose and calling is higher than that of an athlete.
Matthew grew up in Orange County, California, the son of Pro Football Hall of Famer Jackie Slater. His mom and dad raised him and his younger brother David with strong Christian values.
7 years old, I remember my dad sitting down and kind of laying out the plan for salvation, telling me who Jesus was, telling me why I needed him, and just understanding who I was and who God was.
Matthew was a standout in football and track in high school. But by the time he went to UCLA on a football scholarship, life was all about him and what he could do on the football field.
For me, football-wise, was really a struggle. I think when I went into college, a lot of my identity was tied up in being a football player, son of a football player.
Did you ever feel pressure to live up to his likeness, to live up to his legacy? Obviously, you played different positions.
You know what I did? Not from him, though. I kind of put that pressure on myself, and I think people had expectations. You know, this Jackie Slater's son, Pro Football Hall of Famer, he's supposed to be a certain way. He's supposed to act a certain way. His level of play is supposed to be this.
But when Matthew missed his entire freshman season and the first 3 games of his sophomore year because of injuries, he became angry because his football career wasn't going as well as he had planned. So he asked God for an explanation.
And I kind of just was like, what am I doing here? Like, I had these plans, Lord. This is how it was supposed to go, and it's not going that way. I was asking why, and it really came from a selfish place. It was why am I not benefiting personally?
That's when Matthew considered walking away from the game, until he realized that the problem was himself.
I think for me, it was me. You know, we talk about idols and putting other things. It was football. It was my status as an athlete. It was how people viewed me. It was man-pleasing.
That night, Matthew called his father.
My dad kind of just sharing scripture with me and talking with me and helping me see and understand that, hey, it's not about you all the time, son. And sometimes the Lord has plans for your life that you can't even see and understand.
It was then that he decided to follow God's purpose for his life.
How did you change after you made that decision to live wholeheartedly for Christ? What changed?
I think I had a lot of anger and frustration. I think I was just a little bit more free and at peace with you know, the Lord's will. And I didn't wrestle with God as much about, you know, that's how I want to do things. And I think that peace and freedom was really, it was like a weight lifted off my shoulders. Right. And, you know, I just felt like a different person altogether, no question.
After his senior year, Matthew entered the 2008 NFL Draft, knowing at the end of the day, it was in God's hands. And he was selected in the 5th round by New England. Since then, he's proved that he's his own man, one that's not defined by his accomplishments on the field.
When people introduce you, they're going to say, ladies and gentlemen, Matthew Slater, 2-time Super Bowl champion, 6-time Pro Bowler. You know, that's the way they're going to introduce you. How would you describe yourself?
You know, that's a great question. I'd like to be introduced as Matthew Slater, follower of Christ, a husband to Shahzad, and father to Jeremiah. I mean, those are the things that I value most. I'm proud of what I've accomplished on the football field. I've been extremely blessed, but it's not who I am.
Now as a team captain, Matthew understands the role God has given him as a leader on the field and in the community.
You know, I think when you talk about leadership on that team, I think I'm there to serve. And I look at leadership and how it was best modeled, it was through Jesus Christ. And he came to serve, he served people. So as I embrace leadership on the team, I've always tried to be transparent and just serve people. You know, that's what I really feel like I'm here for. It's never really been about football. That's just the byproduct. I think that it's been about building relationships, and the Lord has put me here to make his name more famous. And I think ultimately that is my purpose in life, is to serve and to point the finger in the direction of Jesus Christ.
terrific testimony. Find more great stories about God at work in the world at our Christian World News website. Find it at cbnnews.com.
When you give, smiles grow bigger. When you care, homes are happier. When you comfort, the hurt goes away. When we all come together to love, miracles happen.
Hello, I'm Terry Newsom. Did you know there are more than 148 million orphans in the world today? 148 million. But it was 3 little girls that taught me about the plight of orphans. My husband and I spent nearly a month immersed in the daily activities of a Ukrainian orphanage as we waited to adopt 3 sisters. I saw firsthand the utter loneliness, the pain of rejection, and the overwhelming desire to be loved. That experience changed me forever. And out of it grew a ministry from my heart called Orphans Promise. Today, we're helping orphans and vulnerable children in more than 50 countries worldwide. Thousands of children are now in safe homes. They're being educated, and they're learning life skills. I'm asking you to join with me and become family to these children. Will you call the number on your screen right now? Because every child deserves a chance to be happy.
Hello? Is this thing on? Hey, kids, do you love games? And do you love discovering things? Yeah. Well, do ya?
Then you're gonna love this. It's the new free Superbook Kids Bible app. You can play games, watch videos, find answers to your questions, and a whole lot more. The new Superbook Kids Bible app. Free downloads available on iTunes and Google Play now.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
A student in Israel stumbled upon a rare Second Temple era coin during a hike last week. Israeli authorities released an image of that coin. Pictured on it are 3 stalks of grain and a royal canopy with the words King Agrippa engraved in it. Agrippa refers to Herod Agrippa, who ruled ancient Judea from 41 AD to 44 AD. Herod Agrippa is the King Herod named in Acts 12, by the way. According to Acts, King Agrippa persecuted the church in Jerusalem. He imprisoned Peter and had James killed. The coin will be guarded by the Israeli Antiquities Authority's collection of national treasures. Wow, what a find. Well, folks, that is it for this week's edition of Christian World News. From all of us here at CBN News, have a wonderful week. Until next week, goodbye and God bless you.